Thank you. How y'all are? Well, that's good. It's good to be back with this group again. I was telling Peggy, my wife is the #2 person at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Louisiana. She's the CFO/COO Executive VP. And a tough woman, a tough gal, as anybody from Blue Cross can tell you. And I mentioned to her this morning, and I said, Peggy, in your wildest dreams, could you believe I was going to get to speak at the healthcare forum for the second time? And she said, Loren, you've never been in my wildest dreams. Well, how fair is that? You know, we've been married quite a while. We just celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. And one of the things that spouses do, most of you in the room probably married, you sometimes ask really dumb questions. And so I've reached the age where I pass cemeteries with a little bit of trepidation anymore. And so I asked her, I said, Peggy, if I die, I didn't ask her, I told her, I said, if I die, I want you to sell all my stuff. She said, why would I do that? I said, because I know that if I die, you're going to marry another idiot, and he's going to start using all my stuff. And she said, what makes you think I'd marry another idiot? What a girl, what a girl. I'm going to tell you one more Peggy story. When my kids were my two daughters were about 10 and 12, we went on this African safari thing. Very first night, we're in our tent, and the kids were in their tent, Peggy and I were in our tent, and dusk falls, and all the animals start making these noises, and the kids came over and said, look, this is too scary. So I said, okay, I'll go stay in your tent with you tonight, first night. So I go over there and stay with them, and the next morning we hear this terrible roar. And the kids and I rush to the flap of our tent, and there is a lion with his head stuck in my wife's tent. And the kid said, Daddy, do something, do something. I said, look, the lion got himself into this problem. The lion didn't get himself the hell out of this problem. So, tough gal. Well, we're running very late, and so I've got to a little bit decide on what to share with you and what to cut out a little bit here. But let me, first of all, talk a little bit about the national recession. Actually, I think I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. This was a very bad recession we went through. It was bad both in terms of length and in terms of depth. If you can see here, by looking at these bar charts, I've showed you the length of all the recessions we've been through since the Great Depression. You can see that tall bar on the very end, 18 months tall. It is the tallest we've had since the Great Depression, although nowhere near as bad as the Great Depression. Great Depression, order and magnitude, much worse. But I want you to notice, if you can, about where the glass is setting in that particular video over there. Or if you look, can you see where January and July of 80, 81 is? There's the dot coming up. See those two recessions very, very close together right at the end of the Jimmy Carter term, the first president of the 20th century to die in office. Those two were so close together that they really should count as one. And if you count them together, they were as long as the one that we just got through going through. Many people in this room are old enough to remember how bad the 80s were, especially for this state. And then if you look at the depth, look how far down that bar fell. And these are the data going all the recessions up to, but not including the Great Recession. Great Recession will be way below this. But once again, a minus 5.1% fall in real gross domestic product. But again, if you kind of look at the January 80, July 81 time period there, look at these two bars here, they're about as bad in depth as this recession was. Now, why do I keep going back to that 80, 81 time period? Well, the primary reason I go back to that is look at the way we've come out of this recession compared to how we came out of that 1980s recession, which was equally as deep and equally as bad. You look at the real gross domestic product numbers, the fourth quarter of 1982 wasn't so good, but look at the numbers after that. Real gross domestic product, 9.3, 8.1, 8.5, 8.6, 7. We went into that sucker one side of a V. We came out of it the other side of a V. We shot right back up. But if you look at the way we've come out of this recession, we started out slow. We had about 3 quarters there, but they were pretty good because of some of the initial effects of the stimulus plan. But look at the numbers after that. After that, all the numbers are very, very weak. We came into this sucker one side of a V. We've come out of it like a kindergarten L. This is actually the slowest recovery of any recession this country's been through in its recorded history. And I'm going to suggest to you that the primary reason for that had nothing to do with the depth and the length. Again, the depth and the length are about the same as the depth and the length of that 1980s recession. I'm going to suggest to you the primary reason for this is strictly policy. Okay? If you go back to those, as we came out of that 80s recession, we were focusing on lowering tax rates and on deregulating industries. If you look at now, all we talk about is raising taxes, and we are regulating the skunk out of industries. Now, not the healthcare industry, but I know, that was a funny one. I was wondering if y'all were quick enough to do that or listen to that one. But I mean, we are just regulating the skunk out of everything. And so it's had an impact, as it turns out. I'm going to skip these next 4 charts that show you how we've been going in the interest of time, but I want you to notice this one here. This is another one that shows you how poorly we've come out of the recession. This is the change in employment in the United States by month from 2080 through the present time period. Actually, I don't have the March numbers up here. I had to get in these charts to Allison a little bit early there. But if you look at this dip that occurred between 2008 and 2009, a huge drop of about 8.4 million jobs, a decline of 6.1%. Now, by way of reference, quickly here, in Louisiana, the decline was 2.8%. We did way better than the rest of the country did during this recession. But the main thing I want you to focus in on is look what happened in 2010 and 2011 as we came out. See the first 3 tall bars? That's the hiring of the census workers. See the 3 bars right after that? That's the firing of the census workers, okay? And then if you look at what has happened after that, notice that the line doesn't shoot up like we went down. It's kind of gone real flat. And I want you to notice 3 or 4 numbers on it. See the really tall bar there? That tall bar is about 480,000. That's the tallest bar that you see. See the number for February, 227,000. Okay, unemployment rate at 8.3%. On the average, we've averaged 144,000 jobs a month since the recovery began. Now, let me tell you why this is such a concern to the president and to the administration. Here, look at the math here. There are about 6.3 million people out there that are what we call the measured unemployed. What that means is when the Department of Labor calls up and says, are you looking for, are you unemployed? Yes, I'm unemployed. Are you actively looking for work? Yes, I'm actively looking for work. You're included in this number. You're included in that 8.3% number. Now, add to this, there are about 1.8 million people every year that turn 18, 19 years of age, enter the workforce for the first time. You got to find jobs for those people. Add to that, there are about 1 million people out there when the Department of Labor calls up and says, are you unemployed? Yes, I'm unemployed. Are you actively looking for work? No, I gave up on that about a year ago. They're not included in that 8.3% number, okay? They're what we call discouraged workers. So this means that you have to find 9 million jobs to get back to full employment. Well, let me just show you some of the reference points here. You need 800,000 jobs a month to get to full employment by election day. Okay? You remember the tallest bar I showed you in the recovery period was 480? This will be almost twice as large as that. If you, right now, I couldn't believe it. The Wall Street Journal reported the February number, 227,000, as a really great number. That's not a really great number. If we grow by 250,000 a month, we will not reach full employment to 2016. I want to suggest to you that that's really not good, good word. Now, I'll tell you, the reason the president's got to be concerned about this is no president since Franklin Roosevelt has been reelected with the unemployment rate greater than 7.2%. Now, the Republicans may cause that to be changed, but that's what the record has shown, as it turns out. Now, if you look at the forecast going forward, I have here the forecast for 2012 and 2013 from Wells Fargo and Consensus Forecast USA, an average of about 35 different forecasting firms in the country. Now, the good news is if you look at this chart, there are no red numbers up there. Neither one of these groups is forecasting we're going to go into recession, back into recession over the next 2 years. On the other hand, look at the size of the numbers. I mean, there's no 8s, there's no 9s, there's no 7s, there's no kind of growth rate, real gross domestic product, that you need to get this economy going again. And so that's the problem that the president is facing right now. Now, let me just mention something about health care reform, since this is your industry that you're in. Can I take a quick look at this strictly from a principles of economics class standpoint? I'm teaching principles of economics class, and I say to them, listen, let me see now. We're taking a situation where today you could go out there and buy your health insurance from Blue Cross, United Healthcare, Blue Cross, Aetna, Blue Cross, all these different insurance companies out there. A bunch of different insurance companies. Every one of these insurance companies knows if they don't provide you the best possible service at the lowest possible price, you're going to switch to one of the other companies. The very powerful forces of competition that we talk about in principles of economics classes ensure that, believe it or not, people are getting the lowest possible price and the best possible service. We're going to give that up for a situation where you're going to end up buying, and I think this is the way the exchange is going to end up working, you're going to end up buying all your insurance from one company. And that one company is going to be run by the federal government. Go back and read the chapter on monopolies. What do you discover about that? Are you better off? Are you worse? This is just principles of economic stuff. Let me tell you something. The only way in hell you're going to reduce healthcare costs under this kind of model, and this model is used in other countries, is to put price controls on how much you pay doctors and hospitals. That's the only way you're going to lower healthcare costs. Go back to your principles of economics class and look at the chapter on price controls. When you have a supply-demand curve that crosses there where the market price is, and you put price controls on below the market price, people demand more of the product than is supplied, and you get lines. So today, I wake up and I say, Peggy, I said, look, I'm having a little trouble seeing out this eye. And she says, well, you need to see Dr. Moore tomorrow, see your GP about that. So the next day I go in to see Dr. Moore, and he says, looks like you're developing cataract. You need to see an eye doctor about this. 2 or 3 days later, I get in to see the eye doctor. He checks it out and said, Loren, you need to have cataract surgery. We need to take care of this right away. About a week later, I have cataract surgery. In Canada, I wake up, I turn to Peggy, and I said, I can't have a little trouble seeing out this eye. She says, Loren, you may see your GP. You may be having problems there. About 16 weeks later, I get in to see the GP. The GP says, you seem to have cataracts. You need to see an eye surgeon. 26 weeks later, I get in to see the eye surgeon. The eye surgeon says, you have cataract problems. We need to fix this. 26 weeks later, I have the surgery. Lines. I mean, and again, the Fraser Institute, the University of British Columbia, keeps up with this kind of data all the time. I mean, here's some data just to kind of show you the differences in wait times in the U.S. versus Canada. I mean, it's the dramatic differences. And the other thing is, because of these differences in wait times, the Investor Daily put this information out. Percentage of men and women that survive cancer 5 years after diagnosis. United States, 65%, Canada, 42%. Percent of patients diagnosed with diabetes who get treatment within 6 months. United States, 93. England and Canada, 15, 43. Percent of seniors need hip replacement who receive within 6 months. U.S., 90%. England, 15. Canada, 43. And again, once again, over and over again, what you see is what you predicted Principles of Economics class. You're going to have lines. I mean, that's just something we predict. Also, of course, the other thing is that I know you're all very familiar with, Principles of Economics says you increase regulations, that increases cost, that puts upward pressure on prices, not downward pressure. The law is 2,700 pages long. Think about how there are consultants and lawyers that are loving, no offense for the lawyers part, that are loving this particular piece of legislation. My wife, 2 weeks ago, got the rules from the Secretary of Health on how the exchange is going to be run. 644 pages long. I mean, you have Principles of Economics. What happens when you do something like that? It's going to drive up cost. Here's what I think the new medical, oh, by the way, it's not going to take place in 2014. Gee, I wonder why. If we didn't take the Medicare chassis and simply, add this to the Medicare chassis, we built a whole new chassis. It should have made all of you in the room draw up just a little bit when you heard they're going to hire 16,000 new IRS agents to enforce this law. That should have made you think just a little bit. This is the new medical care symbol, by the way, starting in 2014. I thought you would like to see that. Now, let's talk a little bit about Louisiana and shift gears a little bit. Where is Louisiana now? I've got to tell you something. It's very difficult to know. And the reason it's very difficult to know is the number one metric that we use to figure out where Louisiana is at the present time is the employment numbers. And one of the things that happened about a little over a year ago, in March of last year, before March of last year, the way the employment data were collected in this state is that our Louisiana Workforce Commission would collect those data from surveys and put their data out. And generally speaking, the data were very good. Beginning last March, a year ago, the Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Labor said this is now going to be done by the regional office of the Bureau of Labor Statistics in Dallas. The minute they made that change, all the numbers went goofy on us. For example, in the first month that they did this, in March, look what happened to the growth rate in employment. It dropped from 1.2% to 0.5%. I've been watching the Louisiana economy now for 4 decades. We have never had that kind of a drop in employment growth rate without there being a Katrina or Rita. It just doesn't happen. Look at the latest numbers for February on the state and across the state. Let me just show you how goofy the number. I mean, anybody in the Louisiana Workforce Commission would never allow these numbers to be put out. But look at this. For example, look at the top number there. The state growing 46,600 jobs, 2.5% growth rate. I went back for the last 33 years. The Louisiana economy has grown that fast in exactly 6 years out of the last 33. And most of those times were when the national economy was really rocking and rolling. And one of those years was 2007 when we got that bump because of the recovery from Katrina and Rita. If you look at Alexandria, anybody here from Alexandria? If you're from Alexandria, they show Alexandria losing 1,700 jobs. I look back, the last 33 years, Alexandria has lost that many jobs one time, and that was in the middle of the Great Recession in 2009. People from Alexandria will tell you sales tax collections up 5.5%. Union Tank Car, their major employer, risen employment from 220 to about 584. Major pipeline coming through the area. Major building of a bridge up there. It makes absolutely no sense. Folks from Lafayette, look at that number for Lafayette. 12,000 jobs in Lafayette in 1 year. An 8.1% growth rate. They have never in their history had a growth rate anything like that. And they got the permittatorium going on. So, we kind of think we know what these numbers are useful for, but we really don't. And, sometimes that happens in life. There was, as it seems, since you look like you need this, I will tell you a story about Boudreaux, who went down to the grand opening of the VFW Hall in Pier Park. And luckily, he won the door prize. And the door prize was a toilet brush. So he used it for about 2 weeks, but at the end of the 2 weeks, he decided to go back to paper. Okay. Yeah, it's terrible. Okay, all right, I'm sorry. That was terrible. My wife said, don't tell that one. I said, it's really bad. Now let me finish up. Let me finish up by telling you about what I think is the energy is going to play a big role in our economy going forward. And let me tell you that I'm going to talk to you just about natural gas today. There is a major civil war going on in your state between 2 groups. And as it turns out, one group is heavily located in the northern part of the state. One group is heavily located in the southern part of the state. This is why this civil war is going on. This is a picture of the price of natural gas at the wellhead from 1975 through our forecast for 2012 and 2013. You'll see right before the 2012, see those big spike areas about 6 years in which the price of natural gas was very, very high. The price of natural gas has fallen like a rock, and it is still going down. Now, why is it falling so much? Well, it's the price of something. Must be because of demand or supply. It is primarily because of supply. Because when those spikes occurred in the price of natural gas, and by the way, this happens for anything in your economy. When the price of a commodity gets high, smart, clever, greedy capitalists go out and find more of the commodity. That's what they do. They do that. That's what that's how your economy works, okay? And we're all capitalists, right? Sure, even ministers are capitalists. You ever heard of a minister that was called to a lower paying job? No, you haven't. Anyway, so the price of natural gas has fallen, and the reason it's fallen is because of this tremendous change, technological change. It used to be if you look on the far left-hand side of this, you drill a well down into the shale and you hit it and you'd frack it. Fracking's been around for 60 years. It's nothing new. You would frack it and you might get 2 to 3 million cubic feet of natural gas a day. Then they figured, you know what, let's do? Let's drill a well down and then go horizontally. Now you're talking about going down about 2 miles down and then going horizontally another probably 1.5 miles. And what you do is that pipe that's on the horizontal part, you explode little holes in it, and then you pump water, chemicals, and sand under there under high pressure, and it fracks it. It fracks that shale, makes natural gas come out. And instead of producing 2 to 3 million cubic feet per day, some of the Haynesville shale wells producing 28 million cubic feet per day. I mean, they are big mothers, to use a technical economics term. So, now, for those of you who are Ole Miss graduates, this is a map of the United States of America. As it turns out, there are these shale plays all over the place. The Barnett Shale, right around the Dallas airport. Here's the Haynesville Shale. Right up here is the Fayetteville Shale, which oddly enough is nowhere near Fayetteville. But this is Arkansas, you know, where people still stop and point at airplanes. And then there's the Marcellus. You have the Marcellus Shale up here, and then the Eagle Ford down here in South Texas, down to that particular area. Now, here's the point here. Who loves this? Well, the manufacturing people especially love this, especially chemical plants. And the reason that chemical plants love it is chemical plants use way more natural gas than you residential people or you commercial people. They're huge consumers of natural gas. They make ammonia fertilizer out of natural gas. Out of natural gas, they make ethane, and out of ethane you get ethylene, and out of ethylene you get all these consumer products that you use every day, that you probably use right now, as a matter of fact. And then they use it as a very clean burning boiler fuel. So number one that's good for the chemical industry is that the price of one of their major inputs is going down. But that's not the best news. The best news is the price has gone down here, but it hasn't gone down in Europe. In Europe, it's still staying very high, and Europe is a huge producer of chemicals. I visited one BASF plant in Germany in the latter part of the 1980s. That one plant was bigger than the entire chemical industry in Louisiana. I mean, it is a really big mother, to use a technical economics term. So, number one, you got the price of natural gas. So what is happening? If you think about the market for chemicals, world market for chemicals is not growing very much. What is happening is that we're getting a bigger market share of it because we're eating into the European side. And then in Europe, they got another problem. When they want to get ethylene, from which we get all those products that we talked about a while ago, okay, they're not having to get it from naphtha. Okay, which comes from oil, and price of oil is staying way high. I don't have to tell you people go to the gas station about that. If you're using oil, it takes, when oil is at $100 a barrel, it takes $1,400 to make a ton of ethylene. In the United States now, ethane, which is derived from natural gas, it only costs $730 a ton. So, man, they have really kicking the behinds of these chemical firms in Europe. Now, our only problem here is, what if the Europeans decide, okay, we've got shale here, we'll start using the fracking process here. And indeed, this outfit in England has actually used the fracking technique to find the Bowland Shale in northwest England. Now, our one saving grace, hopefully, is the extreme greens in Europe. Because the extreme greens in Europe are trying to stop the fracking process. They don't like fossil fuels at all. So they don't want to do anything that'll get their people to use more oil or natural gas. Now, they tried to get the UK to say, you can't use the fracking technique. The UK people said, are you mad? However, thank God for France. You can always depend on France to do the wrong thing. Okay? And their National Assembly voted to prohibit hydraulic fracking in their country. Bulgaria has now done that also. Now, as long as these people continue to do that, we're going to be okay. But I got to tell you, a very important law that you learn in Principles of Economics class. Probably on the very first day, you learned a law called the law of demand. Law of demand says when the price of something goes up, people buy less of it. Price of cars goes up, people buy less cars. Price of refrigerators go up, people buy less refrigerators. Price of stupid ideas goes up, people buy less stupid ideas. Did you know it works on stupid ideas just like everything else? Because what's going to happen is they're going to start bleeding those high-paying chemical jobs to the United States. And that's going to continue to happen and continue to happen until the people in that country say, as they say in Texas, hell, this is stupid. Okay, let's go frack that stuff. We can't continue to lose these jobs. And so hopefully for us, that's going to take a long time because we really need it. Now, I'm not going to go through all these, but you're seeing over and over again more and more chemical firms in our state announcing expansions. You haven't heard all of them yet. They're continuing. This big Shell plant, the refinery, $10 billion refinery, is a natural gas to diesel plant. They're coming here because of that low price of natural gas. At least they're looking at it at coming here. Now, the power producers, the people who make your electricity, they're happy about this too, primarily because the EPA is attacking the coal-fired power plants. They're going to have to look for an alternative fuel source. And as it turns out, natural gas is a really good one. Well,